Hello and welcome to Marcellus's first special event. Hopefully, it's the first in a series of many. We're glad it's in Bangalore because I'll give you multiple reasons why we think Bangalore is special for us. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Pramod Gubbi. I'm one of the co-founders of Marcellus. I said Bangalore is special. The number one reason is I grew up in Bangalore, so it's hometown for me. Many of my family members are here. But the second reason, as we were discussing outside, was for most asset management companies in India, the pecking order in terms of where their largest business comes from is Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. We are perhaps the only one where it's Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi. Bangalore is a bigger market for us than Delhi, which is absolutely unique in our industry. And we think it's for good reason. It's a matter of pride for us. And thirdly, I think in the context of today's event, we find Bangalore as a city of ideas, right? So every time we come here, we go back buzzing with ideas because of the way people think here. There's a culture of that. Hopefully one of these days you'll come up with the idea of solving the city's traffic and water issues, but let's not make any more bad jokes about Bangalore's traffic. I think I've got the useless job of introducing two people here who don't need any introduction. But what I'll do is I'll give you their backgrounds in the context of today's discussion, right? So I think in the last 3 months, Saurabh and I have traversed from the western part of the world to the Far East. We met multiple institutional investors globally. And there was one common thread, that it is India's moment, right? I mean, this is not we going and selling. They are telling us that this is India's moment. The next decade, India looks like a shining spot in a world marred. So we thought we'll try and understand what is it that's making all these people say that it's India's moment. And we couldn't think of two better people than the ones that you see sitting on stage to answer that question and help us understand, and I'll tell you why. One, of course, is my long-standing colleague of 18 years, Saurabh Mukherjea, who's also co-founder of Marcellus and our CIO. Saurabh made a big bet on India 15 years ago. From having lived a comfortable life in London, a successful professional life, he decided to uproot his family and move to India, betting his future, his career on India. So it's great to understand from his perspective why he made that move and does it still hold good. Secondly, he's been the best rated, number one rated strategist on India for 4 years in a row by Asia Money, right? So presumably he knows a few things about India. And finally, one of the reasons why all these people are talking about India's moment, particularly outside India, is about 3-4 months ago, The Economist did a cover story called India's Decadal Moment. A large part of that story was influenced by a blog that Saurabh wrote a year ago. So it's that degree of influence that we would want to hear from him. The second guest, of course, is somebody who wears the Indian heart on his sleeve, right? We've all seen him here or heard him talk passionately about India in public forums, and logically basing it on data and analysis as well. Shri Mohandas Pai has multiple hats, and I would rather not miss many of them. So he's a philanthropist, he's a policy advocate, he's an investor, he sits on the board of several organizations and policy committees influencing policy making in this country as we speak. He's also the chairman of Manipal Global Education and a partner at Aarin Capital. He's most famously known, of course, as the former CFO and director of Infosys, an iconic organization from this city. He was also the head of administration, education and research, financial, human resources of the Infosys Leadership Institute. Through these 4 decades of his professional journey, he has seen India grow and transform into an economic powerhouse of opportunities and talent. And we'd like to understand from his perspective. Please give a big hand for the two gents. Over to you.
Thank you for the water. So Hardik, if you could do something, there are some seats empty here, I guess, as the room fills up at the back. just send people to the front, because otherwise we'll have a few people standing at the back needlessly. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, everybody who are here. All of you are clients. I think some of you are in the process of becoming clients. So without you, there'd be no Marcellus. Without you, we wouldn't have the money to pay this hotel. Neither would we have the resolve or the courage to host a luminary like Mohandas Pai. So I think a big thank you to everybody here for helping us be here, helping us make it. Thank you, folks. Thank you. So let me sort of start the story of Marcellus in a way with Mohandas Pai. As you know, we write books, right? We write books because we do so little buying and selling. There's a lot of time left, so we end up writing pretty much a book a year. In 2016, we wrote the first of these books, a book called Unusual Billionaires. I still remember 2017, I visited MDP at his office, at his then office, to give him a copy. He had already read bulk of the book. He'd already ordered 50 copies of the book from Penguin. So I was a little taken aback. Many people that I meet in most other parts of the country, they take the book, but they don't read it. This man had read the book, digested it, already ordered 50 copies. And he made a point that I hadn't thought of honestly till then. His point was that if you guys are able to identify such high quality businesses, clean, well-run, efficient capital allocators, companies creating billions of dollars of wealth, why don't you think about turning it into a fund? Now, you might think that it's crazy that we hadn't thought of it, but we are like that. Sometimes the obvious escapes us. It doesn't escape Mohandas Pai, so he planted the seed of the thought. And we did that. It worked out quite well. In the summer of 2018, I mustered courage. I quit my job. For the first time in my life, I found I didn't have a salary. My wife and I, we've got 2 little kids to raise. So I sat at home thinking, what do we do? And the thought came that perhaps we should launch a fund management company. But hey, how to go about it? How does one build a business? How does one apply for a license? So we realized very quickly that whilst we had the modest resources required to build a fund, we didn't have a guru, a guide. So I wrote to a few people early July 2018. Within a couple of hours, MDP responded saying that he'd be visiting Mumbai. He was at the time, I think he was on the board of NSE and DV. So he was on the board of NSE. There was a board meeting the next day. He said, I'll be landing at 9:30 at night and we can meet at Mumbai airport. So I thought, great, I mean, we get an opportunity to present to one of India's smartest capital allocators. So we created these PowerPoint slides, elaborate PowerPoint deck we created, spreadsheet, cash flow curve. And my colleague Sudhanshu and I, we rocked up at Mumbai airport, Terminal 2, Starbucks ke samne, we waited. So MDP came. Unfortunately, we chose the wrong exit, right? Capital allocation bhi nahi hota, wrong exit we chose, right? And he came out of the other exit. So we finally resolved that confusion. So we sat down, and after we'd ordered the coffees, I explained that this is what Marcellus is going to do. Remember, at this stage, the company hadn't been built. There was no team. There was just a couple of us sitting and presenting to MDP at the airport. He said, look, whatever it is, this makes sense. I'll invest. I'll help you guys build this. So I said, but sir, here's the business plan. He says, look, businesses are not built on PowerPoint. Businesses are built on trust. We trust you. We've met you a few times. I like the business plan. Obviously, there'll be improvements made to the plan as we go along. But whenever the company is ready, let us know. In the meantime, get on with it. Create the company. And saying that, I think it took him all of 15 minutes to say that. My coffee was still warm. I had just had 2 sips of it. And he was done. He walked off to the hotel for his National Stock Exchange meeting. And I sat there and I was still thinking, how does a man figure out so much in so little time, right? So one day, hopefully, Pramod, myself, and the other 120 folks at Marcellus will have the clarity of thought Mohandas Pai has. Until then, we will keep learning from him. So thank you, MDP. Thank you for being a guru, a guide. And as Pramod promised, we will now look at India's journey through his life, right? Because the journey is remarkable. It's momentous. And as Pramod explained, I think many people, not just outside India, but even within India, misunderstand what's happened in the last decade, and therefore misunderstand what the next 10 years might bring for us. Right? I'm not saying, and I don't think anybody contends that everything will be perfect, but there's a lot that will happen that will allow you and me to profit from the changes The changes, for the most part, are constructive. There are negatives that we will discuss. But if we understand the nature of the change, all of us, Marcellus clients, in their investing, in your personal businesses, all of us have that much better a chance to profit from what are momentous changes in what is now the world's fourth largest economy. And to sort of drive that process of understanding, we thought we should organize this fireside session on this monsoon evening in Bangalore. So MDP, I'll begin with the earliest stages of your career, right? You were born in ODP, but you
Bangalore, Bangalore.
You're born in Bangalore, okay. And you grew up in Bangalore in 1970s and 80s, at a time when the norm was to migrate from India. You stayed here, became a chartered accountant. Just help us talk through what was Bangalore like in the 80s. What was a young CA? What hopes, what employment prospects did a young CA have in India of the 1980s?
Saurabh, I was born in 58 in Bangalore, so it's a long time ago. Bangalore is a very small town with maybe 500,000 people. You could walk in the streets, cycle in the streets, play cricket in the streets. Not many people had a car. There was nothing much to do in the evening. There was no TV. There's only a radio. We listened to the radio commentary sometimes. We played in the grounds, in the neighboring grounds. We went to the library. We read 2-3 books a day on the weekends. And a very nice life. There's nothing much to look forward to,
right.
And there were no expectations. And we had enough food, a nice house, and we had a good school, etc. And our ambitions are very limited. Now that was the India that I was born to, and that was the 60s and the 70s. Now when I graduated in 79 from my college, before my CA, India was a failed country because in the decade of the 70s, you had the emergency, you had the JP movement, and we used to stand outside the door and wait for the Indian Express newspaper to come, and the front page used to be blank. And we read that many people were in jail and all kind of stuff. And we actually marched in the streets sometime, and we had some of our classmates who were running errands for people, and it was a very different country. And some of us were happy that we could get idli for 10 paise and 20 paise, and the buses worked. Okay, the railways worked. Many things actually worked when Indira Gandhi had the emergency. So we didn't understand about liberty, individual freedom, all the nice stuff that we read about today. And by 1979, when I graduated, we realized we are a failed country. I got a rank in the university. I got some 10 job offers, but nothing in Bangalore. Okay. But there was a movie that epitomized my generation. That was Diwar. In Diwar, you have Amitabh Bachchan, right? He grew up as a labor union's son, and the labor union had his family captured by this cruel capitalists in Mumbai, and he had to let go of the strike and compromise, and all the labor turned against him, caught hold of his son and wrote on his hand, "Mera baap chor hai." And they were thrown out, and the father in disgrace went away, left his whole family. The mother took these 2 young boys to Mumbai. Everybody goes to Mumbai when you are defeated in your village, and they lived on the streets. And the elder son used to polish shoes, and the younger son used to go to school because he earned the money. And the younger son used to polish the shoe, and there was this big smuggler who came in a dress with him, put his shoe and he polished it and then threw a coin. And this boy stood up and said, "Sab, paisa fenkna, money dena hai." Then this man took it and gave it to him and told his colleague, "Ye lamba safar ka goda hai." Something like that. Right. Then he grows up, he goes to the port, and he works there, and he fights, and he becomes a smuggler, and he becomes angry young man. And his younger brother is educated, doesn't get a job, he has a romance with somebody, and all the nice stuff that happens in Mumbai, right? But later he becomes a government servant, and later he finds out his brother is a smuggler and a rich man. And then this man gets angry, and there's a confrontation between the 2 brothers, because the brother goes and tells the mother that, "Look, your elder son is a smuggler." And the mother is shocked because she remembers her husband and what happened, right? And there's a fight, and then elder son, Amitabh and Shashi Kapoor, they confront, and Amitabh asks him, "Tere paas kya hai?" "Mere paas bangla hai, paisa hai, sab kuch hai." Said, "Mere paas maa hai." And they go away, and this guy is heartbroken. But it was a failed generation, because those days the heroes were People like Karim Lala and Haji Mastan, you heard of them? They were smugglers. You had to be a crook because this was a failed Nehru ideology. Little bit of history I think is important for all of us Indians to understand. Then we can evaluate what is going to happen. India has always been a rich country because we are a riverine civilization. We had a lot of water in the Saraswati, in the Ganges basin. So we are a rich country and we had surpluses and we created philosophy, we created the arts, the music, everything else. China was a similar country, with an old country. They had the Yangtze River and they did that. And the other civilization that rose before Greece was in the Euphrates area, right, in Iraq, what is now Iraq, where there was rivers and water, because where there's water, there is surplus because you can grow more agriculture, and when there's surplus, some people can do the higher things that we demand in life, like portfolio management and all the nice stuff, right, because somebody will pay them for their skills. So, we were the richest country throughout human history till 1000 AD when China overtook us, until 1500. And by 1750, India, China made up 45% of world GDP. And why was that? We had a large population, highly skilled population. Everything was done by human muscle and animal power. And we manufactured goods, we exported, and we had a global trade. Pliny the Elder had written 2000 years ago that trade with India will impoverish Rome, because Rome took Indian cotton textiles and spices and they had to loot other countries to give us gold because we wanted gold, right? And the the Roman toga, I think you wear, is actually cotton, all right? And the women, they wear the dress you see in the movies, right? That's Indian cotton. So we were a rich country. Then came the trade with Europe. Around 1500, Vasco da Gama came to India and came to fight the spice trade, because till then the spices were taken by the Arabs through the monsoon to Arabia and through Venice, and that's why the Venice and the other states became rich, and then to Europe they made money, because meat eaters required pepper and spices to keep the meat slightly fresh, otherwise they were in trouble, right? And spices are worth their weight in gold. And then he got into the spice trade, and the Europeans discovered, same time the Spanish went to South America, the Portuguese went to South America, they looted the Incas, took away the gold. So capital accumulated in Europe between 1500 to 1750 and odd, and all the Europeans started going to the east to do trade, and they were seafarers. India didn't have a seafaring tradition after Shivaji, Maharaja Shivaji. Now he's been resurrected, right, in the new insignia. So British came as traders. And the industrial revolution started in Great Britain because there's accumulated capital, there was traders, and a new class of traders came up. Till then, wealth was in land. The king owned the land, there's the feudal order, everybody was a serf, you are the property of the king. Everybody is the property of the king, right? There were the lords and the serfs, and you are the property of the king. Human beings could be bought and sold, and people who owned the land. Now we had a trading class who made money through wealth, and they bought into power. That's how the East India Company grew up and became powerful. Then came the machine, and because the machine was there, you put capital, the venture capitalists, and created factories. You needed raw material, go impoverish the colonies and get it there, and then shut the trade in the colonies. Handloom, everything was destroyed, cutting their thumbs and everything like that for the muslin weavers of Bengal. And then suddenly wealth came up and started the machine age. So in the age of the machine, India, China lost out. If you look at 1750 to 1900, Europe grew up, became the richest part of the world. Then they had wars on the industrial scale, 1914, First World War to Second World War, 16 million people dead in the First World War, 60 million people dead, people getting killed on the industrial scale. It's unbelievable. Earlier you had to fight with each other with a sword. Here you just stand and shoot in the machine gun, kill thousands of people. Like the massacre of the Zulus by the Gatling machine gun in South Africa. So you had this, and then came the Indian freedom movement. Great Britain was impoverished by the war. And in 1919, an interesting thing happened, Saurabh, which is important. 1919 was the time when the great empires of the world came down. Till then, the world was ruled by kings and emperors. And which is the great Habsburg Empire, Austria-Hungary, 600 years gone, right? The German Empire, gone. We were in Vienna some 8 years ago. And when we were walking on the streets, suddenly we saw the streets closed and the procession coming, people in various different dresses, some 60, 70 different dresses. It was the, funeral march of Otto von Habsburg, the last emperor of the Habsburg Empire, who became an emperor in 1919. He was dead then. And they were going through this march. Okay, the Habsburg Empire was gone, the German Empire was gone, the Kaiser was gone, 1917, the Tsar was gone, another 600 years of history, the Ottomans were gone, in China, the Chinese emperors were gone with Sun Yat-sen taking over, and that threw up the world, and the unresolved problem of the First World War led to the Second World War, and the war and the country and the world we see today is the result of the post-war empire. Now, when India got a freedom, 1947, we had 1.5 billion pounds owed by Great Britain to us for the war effort. We were the biggest economy in Asia. Out of the 5 richest families in Asia, that time 3 were Indian, maybe some from Calcutta and the Tatas from Mumbai, right? And our industry was intact. China was destroyed by the war, Japan was destroyed by the war, Southeast Asia was destroyed by the war. We are the largest. And what did Pandit Nehru do? We were a free trade country throughout our history. We had become rich because of trade, we are colonized because of trade. And then we shut shop and we had the socialistic model and we suppressed private capital. Private capital could not start steel plants, could not expand, could not do anything, license quota Raj, centralization of economic power, and then the destruction of the entrepreneur class in this country. And that led to India growing at 3.5% a year from 1950 to 1980. Population grew at 2.5%, per capita income grew at 1% a year for 30 years. And that's the world we entered into after our college, 1980, right? And during the time, the world grew at 4.5%, Asia grew at 6.5%. From the richest country in Asia, we became the poorest country in Asia by 1980. And that destroyed the entrepreneurial class. We're still recovering from that. 80 to 90, we grew at 5.5%, population grew at 2.5%, debt went up from 20 billion to 80 billion, and we landed in the mess in 91, and I'll tell you what happened after that. So 70s were the time when we entered the workforce, everything was failed, and we had a broken country. And then came, the 80s where Indira Gandhi came back because these people in Janata Party squabble. And after that, we had Rajiv Gandhi come when Indira was assassinated. And Rajiv came as the ray of great hope for a young man who said only 15% of what the government spends goes to the people. And now I think somebody is saying 40% goes as bribe in Karnataka. I don't know how much reaches after that. And maybe the situation has not changed in Karnataka, it changed in Delhi. Delhi corruption has come down. And the 80s were the time when you saw a flux and a change. So that was the time. And 80s were the time, and late 70s time of Dhirubhai Ambani.
So just on that, right, this 40-year period, 50 to 91. So 50, my parents were born, 91, my parents migrated from India, and they still haven't returned. I'm still waiting for my parents to come back to India. Now, 40 years is a long time, MDP. Before we get into the post-91 period, why did it take 40 years for India to flip from what we adopted in 47? Why did it take the best part of half a century for the country to do the right thing vis-a-vis economic policy?
No, because the freedom movement was against the East India Company. The memory of the East India Company is a company had taken over this country. In fact, you'll be interested, we had George Soros come to Nandan Nilekani's house, those days. And somebody asked, George asked somebody, L.C. Jain I think was there, he asked him, how is it that 100,000 white people could take over a country of 330 million people? And he said, we also thought about it when we were fighting the freedom movement and realized India was a feudal country. There were some 550 kingdoms. And the kingdoms had a king and some few rulers ruling. So you came as the power, defeated the king, removed them, and the people said the king is dead, long live the king. The queen is dead, long live the king. It didn't make a difference to people's life. They were oppressed by everybody, right? You understand? So that was the kind of a feudal culture. And in that feudal culture, we had a freedom movement. And then in the freedom movement, they were against this capitalistic society which was represented by the imperial power Great Britain. They had admiration for Russia, Soviet Russia, because at that time the Russians seemed to have worked, even though we know the stories of what Stalin did. And Nehru was a passionate Fabian economist, Fabian, right? He belonged to the Fabian school. You see, there's always romance in giving away somebody's money. And Nehru was the son of a rich man. He had disdain for others. Gandhi was a different person. Being a Baniya, he was the real capitalist. In fact, in 1947 or so, when Nehru brought in pricing controls, license quota, Gandhi is supposed to have said, this desh mein sarkar vyapari hai, us desh mein janta bikari hai. Now, Gandhi wanted the village economy to develop. Nehru wanted the big industries to develop a capitalistic model led by the state capitalism as against people's capitalism. It is the bottom-up approach versus the top-down approach. And if you look at how China grew after Mao with Deng Xiaoping, it is the bottom-up approach that grew, and that's the only way to create wealth. So you had this muddled thinking, and Nehru made sure he decimated the Congress leadership. He put his daughter in 1969 as the INC chairperson, and slowly the old guard died. Nobody came to power, and his daughter came, and the daughter was dependent upon the CPIM. CPIM was against capitalism, and it continued. So it is a small ruling elite. So the colonial powers in Delhi went, it is replaced by another small ruling elite. Delhi ruled, and that's why today Lutyens Delhi is gone, and that's why we have all these kind of narratives in this country.
So now we come to 91, right? So as luck would have it, my parents migrated in May 1991, right? They migrated to the UK. July 91, Manmohan Singh, P.V. Narasimha Rao, new economic policy. So real time when these two, the PM and the FM in Delhi announced the new economic policy, did you realize real time how momentous?
Yes, we understood a little bit at that point of time. Nothing can stop the march of an idea whose time has come. Victor Hugo. That's what Manmohan Singh stood. Yes. I gave a speech sometime later and said on the so-and-so date, a smally built man with a turban and a beard stood up and gave a speech for India and liberated India, in the course of 60 minutes. We got our economic freedom in 91. We got a political freedom in 1947. You know what that was? You want to go abroad, you got to go to RBI, apply for permission to give you dollars. Many Indians went to the US without the dollars, and they went with $8, right? You know how you got the $8? You take the passport, go to the bank in the airport, they give you $8 without asking. Now I think they give you $50. You understand? You get foreign currency. So we had pricing control, 170% duty for computers. You could not travel overseas. To raise capital, you had to have the controller of capital issues who told you how to price. The system was captured and manipulated, and we got freedom. The duties came down. We could buy. But what happened in the first 5 years, the tiger was caged for so long, is so enfeebled that the doors open up, the tiger looked around, sat for some time, smelled the fresh air, came out, walked a little bit and went right back. It didn't understand how it is to be free. People didn't understand how it is to be free. But things happen over time, and thus that age that Infosys took off, the IT industry took off, everything took off after 1993-94. So 91 was a momentous time when there was hope and there was relief. Now in the 80s, I had become a CA, and I stayed in Bangalore. I used to earn 500 rupees a month, not enough for my petrol. When I first got my bike in 1978, petrol was 3 rupees 58 paisa a litre. About 54 rupees, we used to fill the full tank, 14 liters, and have fun. So those are very different days. But low expectation, happiness. We didn't have much, we were happy. We thought we were happy, but that's what it was. There was contentment. And then 91 came, in the 80s we built up a career. I got married, and I had my first child in 89, but then I felt a sense of despondency because I was not earning enough. I thought I should go away somewhere and thought about it, but by time 91 came and all the things improved.
So 91, as you said, right, two sets of responses. One is the enfeebled tiger. So unfortunately, because we had migrated, the post-91 bit I only read about in the papers. So there was something called the Bombay Club, MDP. Bombay Club, from what I know, is a bunch of prominent industrialists in Bombay who got together, apparently, I think the Belvedere Club in Oberoi or something. And their job was to block change, right? And yet there was little Infosys in 91 going public. Why did 91 produce such contrasting responses? A bunch of people in Bangalore taking an IT services company public, and a bunch of big wigs in Bombay trying to block change. What was the reason for these contrasting?
As Saurabh, about 4 years ago, as the president of the All India Man Association, I called up Rahul Bajaj to come to give a talk. He refused and said he doesn't want to talk, but he came and gave a talk. And I stood up and introduced him and said, Rahul Bajaj brought in the famous Bombay Club dialogue in 91, and we should thank him for it. He was shocked. He was shocked. See, if you look back now, Saurabh, We were a controlled economy where you had quotas for manufacturing, and if you manufacture one item above that, you could go to jail. It's a criminal offense. So everybody was there. Suddenly you opened up and your currency depreciated, foreign capital came in. Saurabh Pal and others came in and they could buy Indian companies for a song. Now, if there was no resistance from the communists, you got to thank them too a little bit. You know, most times they're wrong, but sometimes they're right. And you give time to Indian industry to adjust where things are free and fight against capital, because we are not a capital surplus country. You could come and buy up this whole country for $100 million, I mean maybe $10 billion. You would have gone back to a state when most of business enterprises were being owned by foreign capital. Is anything wrong? Nothing wrong, but you need Indian capital also. Look at Southeast Asia. Look at the many countries. Look at South America. They're all owned by MNCs. They don't have their own companies. You need MNCs. You need Indian companies. You need your own people to come up and to own stock. And that's why you are important, because Indians have to own stock in their own companies. Like LIC has got a small portfolio. They could have done so much of money, right? They never bought Infosys till Infosys was 3 billion or 4 billion because they said the price is too high. They lost all the time. Whereas Morgan Stanley bought 10% of Infosys in the IPO, and it became such a big part of their first mutual fund that they had to keep selling because there's nothing else left in the fund except Infosys to make money. You ask Akash Prakash, he'll tell you nice stories. But you must understand, the important point I'm trying to make is that they required time.
Right.
And the time was essential for them to reconfigure to do it, because the supply chain was broken. We didn't have enough roads, we didn't have enough ports, we didn't have enough power, we didn't have many things. The railways never worked. It took a long period of time. Yes, we are very happy. Bangalore to Delhi, 2 days or 3 days. We went from Bangalore to Jammu Tawi, it took 4 days. We were very happy sitting in the train watching, it's okay. We never had a sense of time. We had time on our hands, right? But that is the world. Now you have this foreign capital come and buy over everybody. Yeah. So he stopped, he created a debate because you reduced the tariff so much drastically. It was the same thing that happened in Russia after Yeltsin, when all these US fellows went and came and said, sell off this, and you are the oligarchs. Because, they came in between. So you require a transition time, and in a democracy, the transition time can be given if there's a debate. So Rahul Bajaj came with the thing. We also opposed it. We said we need 100% foreign capital and everything. But here was a small company, Infosys. What happened? First of all, that is the time when we are liberated, we could go and export. They created something called the STP scheme. STP scheme means you could import computers with no duty. Duty had come down. You had a bonded warehouse and you could export software. And for exporting software, we had satellite link, 64 kbs. It cost 56 lakhs per year. It's the outrageous price, 64 kbs. 64 is great. And we had a custom officer sitting down there counting the number of bytes. Because those days, we had excise duty inspectors in all factories, right, Abhay? So a custom guy sitting down and say, kitna byte gaya, kya gaya? Nobody knew what went to that place. How did we export? And we used to export in floppy disk. Floppy disk, we used to export software and do all kind of stuff. But we could travel, and we saw business grow up, and we did an IPO because free pricing. Free pricing was wonderful. We could go demand whatever price we want. Of course, we didn't get fully subscribed, so Ballabh Bansali put in some money and all that helped us out. And that's a roaring story. But we grew. Because see, Saurabh, 94, we looked at the global market. The global market for software at that time was something like maybe $100 billion. The Indian market was something like $10 million. So we focused on the global market. And we focused on the global market. We were exporting 99% of what we did. And we were doing it by body shopping. And then it became an offshore development center. We invested in a campus. And the whole idea started. And we created growth. And we had 30% net income.
Right. So 90s also bought, right? So after the Bombay Club was sort of defeated, 90s bought the Harshad Mehta scam. And then the East Asian crisis, Russian crisis. So it was a turbulent decade. Through that, right, I think 94 you joined Infosys. Did you guys doubt that India as a free market economy will be able to sustain, given the punch that the Harshad Mehta scam packed, given how the East Asian economies fell like 9 pins from 97 onwards?
See, there was a lot of confusion in this country at the point of time. What is liberalization? What is happening? Nobody knew what was happening, including the government of India. They didn't know what was happening. So I shared at the great time. And I still remember, you'll be happy. SBI wrote off 800 crore loss. 800 crores at that point of time because they lost the securities, and they just in the balance sheet, the one single item we provided for 800 crore rupees because of this scam. I mean, such a powerful bank. The banks were different those days. And, you know, we didn't realize anything. We are just growing our business. It is a small business and we are growing it and we had good growth and we focused on that.
So you, in a way, you were insulated from all this chaos.
No, the chaos was there. I mean, the stock market is booming. You know, this SBI Magnum, there's something called SBI Magnum. It's a mutual fund. Mutual fund NAV was 11. I had a little bit, I sold at 180. Never knew why it was 180. I mean, Magnum, mutual fund, NAV, went to 180. And this Ashad Mehta came with this replacement value for ACC and took the price up, right? All kind of stuff happened because those are crazy times. Money was coming because the bank money was coming to the market. Everything was going up. Everybody joined the party and people made money. And none of us understood. You are not there to tell us forensic karo, ye karo, wo karo and all that. You're not there, right? You're too young. You came much later. So it was a good time. Everybody making money and do it. And nobody understood it and we grew.
So part of that journey of money was you guys went to New York and you floated the ADR, first Indian company to float.
See, in 94 I joined as a consultant, then became an employee. We got the stock option scheme. And the idea is very clear. We want to give stock options. Of course, let me be honest, nobody knew the impact of the stock option scheme. It was 20% of equity and is worth 1,40,000 crores. If somebody knew that 30 will be one, they might have not have given, but we know they gave it to everybody as a good thing. It's the largest scheme. We've created many millionaires, millionaires, dollar millionaires and all that. Is good fun. And, you know, at that point of time, see, Saurabh, Murthy told us, we may not be the biggest, we have to be the best. Mayank is here, the good builder. He wants to be the best. He's not the biggest, but he wants to be the best. Because everybody can be the best. To be biggest, you have to be the biggest. There was the Tatas, Birlas, you know, Ambani, big guys, right? So we said we got to be the best. So we set standards in everything. And one of the standard was to list in NASDAQ. And listing in NASDAQ was not to raise capital. Because we raised 13 crores in the IPO in 93, before I came. And the 13 crores was to be used to buy an AS400, a big machine, and the campus. We spent 16 crore on the campus. The AS machine we didn't buy because, you know, the client server technology was coming and those were technological changes. I'll explain that. And at that point of time, we had good cash flows. Business was growing. So that 13 crores is still in the bank. So we didn't need capital in NASDAQ, but we said 60% of business come from the US. We don't want to be a curiosity for a US company to do business with us because we didn't want them to see us somewhere in a far country called India and the risks. So if you're listed on NASDAQ, they'll see us a company listed in their own markets. And second, we said we want dollar stock options to attract good employees from the US for marketing and others. And then third, we said we want a currency for acquisitions. So is the interest. So we said we'll do that. And then we gave our annual report in the gap of 7 countries. Those days, France had its own gap, Germany had its own gap, Japan has its own gap, US gap, UK gap, and Indian gap, and some other gap was there. We did the gap of 7 countries. We gave an annual report. We produced US gap from 1996. We gave human resource accounting. We gave economic value added analysis. And our first annual report had Madhuri Dixit there and Shivram Karan that are sold in the black market in Bombay. Wow. So we did all the things to set standards, and one of them was going to NASDAQ to list. And when we went to NASDAQ, I'll tell you the story, we had 4 banks, Robertson Stevens, Alex Brown, Montgomery Securities, and one other company, and they had taken Microsoft to the market, Microsoft, $2 trillion. They had taken Apple to the market, they had taken all these great companies, they were in the West Coast. So we went to the West Coast, small firms, and it took us 3 years. Because immediately after we started in 1997, I think the market fell, Microsoft fell, right? The market collapsed in America, right? And then we appointed these bankers, they came here and did everything. And we said no to Morgan Stanley, we said no to Goldman Sachs, and we said no to Merrill Lynch. And the Merrill Lynch CEO came to India to visit us, and you know, they were very happy, they were shocked. Small, teeny-weeny company of no value, saying no to the biggest bulge bracket investment banks. They could buy you like this. And then we had the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange come to Bangalore and to talk to us and all that to go. But he said, we'll go to NASDAQ because it's there. And it was an aspirational moment for us. And we did it. It took us 3 years because the market went up and down. And by the time we went for listing in 99, all the 4 banks were sold. And we had Goldman Sachs, we had Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch as the bankers because they had all been bought over by them. The West Coast was gone. All right, so we listed, and I'll tell you this interesting story. We are raising $72 million. When he went on the road show, we were $2 billion. By the time we finished the road show, we were worth 3.6 billion. The market was shooting up. And in fact, we went to an investor, I remember, we did 8 meetings a day. And Murthy used to talk 45 minutes, I used to talk 5 minutes. And Murthy used to say the same thing with the same passion till the last meeting. He's an incredible guy. And for 5 minutes, I had to make my pitch about the financials, and I used to get bored and give it a nice twist. And this man used to look at me and afterwards come out and said, why did you make the statement? Show me the data. So I had to give him the data. So it was terrible. He was an unbelievably tough man. And in the evening, he used to take me to an Indian restaurant to give some food. Because in the afternoon, they used to give us turkey sandwiches. Terrible. Vegetable sandwiches and turkey sandwiches. Right. So it went up, and one person said, oh, you started this road show. Why is the price going up? He was implying we are doing something in India, manipulating markets. Murthy told him, sir, I've come here to sell my shares. If you want to invest, please invest, but don't make allegations. So we had self-respect, and we finished it. 1 week afterwards, the second week, the pricing was, I think, on a Friday, and on Tuesday evening, we had no book. Wow. No book.
Wow.
So Murthy called me and said, Mohan, there's no book, we have to go back, it's not going to work, blah, 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 and all the things. Very angry and upset. So I told him, no, sir, please wait, let me talk to Vallabh. So I called up Vallabh Bansal because he said, Mohan, we have to now go back to India. I said, sir, we can't go back. We have to jump in the mid-flight, we have to open the window and jump into the Atlantic. Everybody is waiting in India, newspapers saying listing, this is going to happen, all kind of stuff. 5,000 people are coming on Friday evening for the listing ceremony. So we had to call up Vallabh, and Vallabh spent the whole night talking to India and told Murthy is the book. And then we had a $3.6 billion book for 72 million.
Wow.
And then we had a fight with the bankers. So we came from SFO to New York by the red eye on a Friday morning, and we had a fight before then with the banker, because banker said, you got a book at $37, we'll price at 37, and we said we want 34. What, you want a discount? Now look at all these IPO fellows. They take a pride that I want this value, I'm worth here. What matters for a company after IPO is not what the price you get, what happens after the pricing. Have the investors made money? We said we want the investors to make money. We are diluting 3%. We don't want to destroy the 97%, so 34. So we fought, we got it, and we listed. And then the listing ceremony, Saurabh, we are on TV in India, broadcast from NASDAQ, 5,000 people roaring in Bangalore in the campus, the media there, everybody is there, and Murthy is sitting in front, and the back, the screen, we are all sitting here, and the ticker will come there. And Murthy is looking anxiously, kya hoga? Because at the moment, the price is not right, we are dead. The humiliation, okay? So suddenly it opens at 52, and we all smile, and Murthy smiles. And then said, a small step for India, a giant leap for Infosys. And he gave a nice speech and thanked everybody. And then we came back, and when we came out on the NASDAQ screen, our face was there, we took it, then we came back. And when we came back for the first time in the airport, somebody gave me a bouquet and received me and all that. Nobody received me so far, travel. You should travel.
Yeah, amazing story.
So it's a great story. We came back here, and I remember, the first analyst meet, we got to have an analyst meet. So we were in this nice room which we had built, analysts are calling, I don't know what question they're going to ask. And some of the brightest analysts were covering us because it's a good company, $3.6 billion, right? And the analysts called and all that, somehow managed to answer the questions and all that. And from that time, we made sure that we could answer anybody's question anytime before they opened their mouth.
Okay, now that explains a lot about why you always know what we're going to ask you.
No, I understand. You see, because you see, when I joined as CFO in 94, I told Murthy, I'll give you a P&L account with 99% certainty at 3 o'clock on the last working day of the month. Right. Because MIS is very important. That month should be over the day, next month is next time. So you take decisions, right? So if I don't get it on 3:15, he'll call up and say, are you sleeping? He's a tough man, no forgiveness.
Right.
So we have to get everything right, all the accounting, give it correctly with great accuracy. You'll see budget was actual, take it, have tea and travel and come back after 15 days. And if you don't meet your numbers, you are dead. He'll call everybody, make you sit down, do everything, take decision, push, make sure you meet your numbers. And we used to give guidance. And why did we give guidance? We gave guidance because we knew analysts are going to determine our future. We wanted to tell them what we will be so that we lead, not them. We don't want an outsider to lead. We want information to be in the market. And we said we'll give all the accounts within 8 days or 10 days of the quarter. And every quarter we'll get it audited. We got it audited. every quarter. First company to do it. All the fuss that is, all the practice we did it. And we did it alone because we wanted to do it. And why did we do that? Because we are paranoid and scared that information could leak.
And you got it audited in all those French GAAP, UK GAAP.
Everything, and that is for the annual thing, not for the quarter. Okay. And then we used to make sure that we had a board meeting the previous day, and in the night, accounts were shown to the audit committee. Audit committee knew about it. Next day morning, 8 o'clock we start before the market opens. And then by 9 o'clock, before 9:30, we send the message out to everybody and finish it. So the news was out in the market. And then we used to go before a broadcast studio. CNBC came to a campus. Yes, yeah. We used to have the broadcast studio 2-3 hours. We used to talk, and it's like that. So it was a.
This was the building of a new corporate culture in India.
But that was the see, the middle class has built this country now. See, earlier to that, it was the business class. The business class, nothing wrong with them. They're good people. They grew up, they have a different attitude. Now it is the business class, and the India of today is the India of the educated business class, which is now coming up and doing things in a very different manner.
So let's move into the new century. Nasdaq done, 99, 2000, dot-com bust happens, 9/11 happens. 2003, I think China joins the WTO and the boom begins in India, right? And you get, I think, 10 years of almost non-stop growth. In Infosys, you're CFO, you're on the board, then you run HR. What exactly was it about that 10 years which took India from being a small country that Americans barely knew to a country which, for the first time since 1750, start being reckoned with? What were the changes that took place in that 10 years, sir?
Well, let me tell you a story before I come to that. I think it was sometime in 1997 or something, Montek Singh Ahluwalia came to Bangalore and visited us. He said, Montek, why are you here? No, I went to the Aid India Consortium. There used to be an Aid India Consortium those days where the World Bank and the IDA is not, they used to give soft loans to India. And all these countries said. I went to the Aid India Consortium, and for a change, they never spoke about India except Maruti was being spoken about. Maruti had come, and they spoke about software. He came and said, what is this software? What is happening in this country? So he had come to see. Nobody knew what we were doing. So we were the darling of the media because we are doing new things, and people thought we were going to conquer the world and all that thing. I remember a conversation, Mukesh Ambani, 5-6 years ago, he said, Mohan, we used to look up to you coming on the TV and talking. We thought you were going to conquer this country. We never knew. And in this decade, you see, there's something extraordinary happened that time. 1991-92 was the age of the mainframe and AS400. Then came Microsoft, a PC on every desk. That is the personal computer. A Pentium 4 machine which came because of Vinod Dham and all that cost $2,500. And when I joined in 94, I brought it down to $2,000, ordered 2,000 machines. And we are all happy. Now we get it for some $200 or whatever it is. Okay. Then we came to client server, then came the Y2K. Okay. Y2K meant the number, they had taken the year 2000, they didn't have anything beyond that. And they thought the planes are going to fall, the world is going to go. Consultants created fear, we made a lot of money. And after that came the internet. And internet was all run in the US when Nasdaq went to 5,000. Remember that time? Yeah. Nasdaq went to 5,000, and in that decade, and internet came, everybody thought eyeballs. People come on eyeball. There's America Online. Not the internet like today. It's very difficult those days, right? America Online and all these people are there. And then internet bubble came up, money came in. Infosys went up from, I think, 15 billion to 35 billion in 2 weeks. Wow. And came down to 20 billion in 1 week. We never knew why it went up, never knew why it came down. Right, okay. So that's the kind of euphoria that was there in the market. Right. Then there was a internet bust, because internet had advanced ahead of reality. So there was a bust, and after the bust came a market fall for us. And what are the market fall? The market fall was very clear. We were giving guidance. So Murthy and I were sitting down on the TV giving guidance, and Murthy said there's fog on the windshield, and we're only going to grow by 30% this year. With earlier 2 years, we have grown by 100%. Wow. And then the stock fell 40% in 2 days. Nobody from Bombay spoke to us. They were all shell-shocked. 40% in 2 days. But I had called some overseas investors, said, is the business, how are you? I said, okay. Is the business fine? Yeah. Are you growing to go 30%? That's what we have said. Everything fine? Yes. They bought the stock, doubled in 6 months. Wow. So we saw this kind of uncertainty, and then we were $1 billion in 2014, and in 21 months we reached $2 billion of revenue in 2016, in 21 months after that. So those were the years when we grew, because internet bust, then came the enterprise thing, and then you had the global financial crisis, and till 2010 it was good going. And I think it was fantastic because the market grew, we grew, and we did all the things right. Now, are we superstars? No, we are ordinary people. We just did things right. And we are passionate. We work 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Life was just work, work, work and work. And there's nothing else in our life. And the work was all outside. A lot of travel, a lot of work. But we were passionate, we were energetic because we wanted to achieve something. We are all self-driven people.
And that culture, right? This culture that middle class entrepreneurs will build giant companies. Infosys was the first to do so, but gradually that culture percolated to the rest of India, right? It
happened in Bangalore.
It happened. So it started here. What was that osmosis? How did the Infosys model, get credibility in the rest of the country, given the socialist past that we just discussed?
No, suddenly, remember, India's economy grew, and let me give you some data. 1991, when we opened up, we were 275 billion. 2022 March, we have come to 3.15 trillion. We have grown at 8.2% a year in dollar term for 31 years. Per capita income grew at nearly 6.5%. Okay? Per capita income, that means doubles in 10 years or something, rule of 72, right? So income grew, everything grew, jobs grew, and we were the heroes. Because media spoke about us, everybody wanted. Then capital started coming in, there was free pricing. Of course, market went up and down, it fell, everything happened, all kind of scams happened, NSE grew, all kind of changes happened, the dematerialization came and everything. And markets grew. And all that created a scope for more entrepreneurs to come. See, Indians are entrepreneurial. Indians are risk takers. We got a trading instinct. We can do well. What we need is capital. What we need is markets. And we show the global market can be there. So we had a lot of Indian industries come there, and they felt the reward is not the cash you take out from the business earlier, because don't want to pay government tax. It is the market capitalization. And then the media started becoming billionaires. Suddenly a billionaire became like the unicorn founders now. Everybody wants to be a unicorn. Why? It is a category of people, right? So all that, the entire mentality of India changed, but largely changed in South India, Bangalore, and South India, and little bit in Bombay. Delhi still stayed where it stayed for a long period of time.
Right. So 2010, Vinod Rai ji came on TV. I remember November 2010, Vinod Rai ji did a press conference on 2G. Then there was a bunch of other things that the Comptroller and Auditor General investigated. And by 2013, right, those of us who were in the stock market realized that the foreigners are giving up on India. And once again, we saw another wave of migration begin, right? What exactly happened that prosperity wave that had got kicked off in 2003-04, why did the wheels come off it in 2010, 11, 12, 13? What was specific to India?
I think the specific thing to India was very clear. Growth came down for a simple reason. The cost of capital is too high. You see, if you want to compete in the world, there are only two things that matter. Productivity of capital, productivity of labor. Productivity of labor in India was poor, except in the IT industry, because we are a services industry, manufacturing was poor. And productivity of capital was also poor because depend upon competition, depend upon the cost of capital, etc. And I think those days real interest rates were high, if I'm right, if I remember high. And the world has given up because it is a deep sense of corruption. You see, there was a lot of corruption, political instability. Modi and the BJP were fighting to come up, remember? And they were Jaitley was fighting in Parliament. Parliament was in a state of suspension. We had a weak Prime Minister who never opened his mouth, who was not in control. So there was a sense of despondency, and this high corruption, court activism, everything stifled economic activity. And suddenly people felt that there is no sanctity to contract in this country, anything can change. You are given license for all those people for the for the wireless wireless business, and suddenly Supreme Court said they are not valid. What happens to all the people who given money? Etisalat lost $1 billion. Suddenly it disappeared, right? So that uncertainty made sure that people lost confidence.
Right, right. And these were the years when we migrated to India. We came in 08, and I remember 2009, 10, 11, 12. you would read annual reports or DRHPs, right, IPO prospectuses, and even today, if you read them carefully, and we read them very, very carefully, 2009, 10, 11, 12, you would see that in the DRHP itself, transactions which were taking place, which were basically going to get everybody into trouble, including the promoter. And by then, India had already got digitized. You could go to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, pay $10 and download the shareholder register. And you could see politicians owning subsidiaries of companies that are going public without the politicians' interest being disclosed. And those were sort of tough years for us as well, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. A lot of people, a lot of companies where we were pointing these issues out obviously weren't very happy with us. And Pramod, myself, a whole bunch of us went through, I think, probably the 4 most nerve-wracking years of our career as we dealt with what was pretty blatant crony capitalism. Now, if we now step back, right, and look at the last 10 years, Nandan Nilekani came up with Aadhaar led to India Stack, UPI, and now ONDC. So the digitization trend. And the other aspect is the whole reform in the banking system. The banking system, you said, cost of capital had gone up. Now we've got home loans at 7%. The government of India borrows from the 10-year bond. The 10-year bond is 7%. You and I can get a 20-year home loan at 7%. Nowhere else in the world can you get a mortgage without a spread on the 10-year bond. What exactly transpired that in the space of 10 years, we've flipped the narrative again, perhaps as only India can. From despondency, we've got the banking system repaired, cost of capital back to affordable levels, and deep digitization of a sort that even the United States or UK for that matter doesn't have.
See, externally, the last 10 years before, after the global financial crisis, when the US opened up, everybody opened up, have been a boom year. The global economy has grown very fast, right? Except Japan. Europe grew, America grew. Last 10 years, the American capital market went up. Yeah. When India is supposed to go up, India stayed same, almost the same. The US went up. Right? Now, after COVID, again, that $25 trillion that have been printed overseas is beginning to show up, and we're going to see some problems there. Now, what happened in India? During that time, there was telephone banking. The banks were giving loans to everybody. There was a boom of capex. Before 2014, those years you spoke about, in that years of that,
10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
There was a boom. You could call up somebody and talk to Delhi and give. People like, Bhushan brothers, remember the 2 brothers? Each of them got 20,000 crores. And Lanco got some 25,000 crores. They never had capital, they got money. And yesterday I was speaking to a banker and asking him, how did the banks give money to somebody when setting up a 30,000 crore project without asking for 10,000 crore capital? First you say, show me the capital, I'll give you the loan. They said the banks never asked. They all knew they were going to gold plate, going to inflate, bring it back, so they never asked. I said, how can you not do that? No, they never asked. That's the attitude. Any entrepreneur came, 30,000 crores, 40,000 crores. Banks went on giving loan. The balance sheet built up, right? The balance sheet lending went up from 21 lakh crores to some 70 lakh crores, something during the point of time. And the entire thing went bust. The banking crisis in the last 6 years brought down the growth in India and cleaned up. All these cronies went to jail. And in this decade, we have seen great reforms. First of all, digitization took off so that we had all the information and everything else. And because of digitization, tax revenues are going up. Now, all of us get this 26A, when many people are surprised to find that they have some mutual fund they never knew they owned. Because it's all being recorded and maybe we have forgotten about it, right? Maybe we'll find out and suddenly we realize we are not declared in our income tax return. That's a bigger problem. So now they're cleaning up and allowing you to do that, right? And that all came out because of IT. Aadhaar empowered people. 24 lakh crores of money went to the people at the bottom of the pyramid by direct benefit transfer. 17 tax got linked to 1. Things have become simpler. Supply chain costs have come down from 14% to maybe 12% because of GST, maybe 10% because of railways going faster at 45 kilometers as against 25 kilometers and all the road networks. So we went through the pain in the first 5-6 years, banking crisis, political instability, going after people with black money and all that. Then demonetization decimated the black money class. Suddenly black money became a dirty world because people were scared. Till demonetization, the Indian trading class were never scared. They'll have something, they'll pay some money and they can do what you want. Now they're all scared because they don't know if they keep the cash, what happens to them, and Modi is sending people to jail. And then we had the impact of all this come up today. So today what do you see? A banking sector which is in good shape, no NPS, correct? The accounting is better. Raghuram Rajan did that asset quality review, first time, okay, and they did that because we used to go to Raghuram Rajan and tell him, go to IFRS for banks, because IFRS is based upon expected loss, not incurred loss. That means the bank's balance sheet, you got to estimate the cash flow for your assets and build in the loss provision based upon past data rather than wait for the loan to go bad. When the loan goes bad, you go on greening and not make provision. So we said that, but they were scared what will be the impact. They never did that. So Raghuram Rajan did that. Then we had all this, banking crisis, and we had the GST come in. All kind of reforms happen. So today banking is very good. Industry has done unprecedented profits last 2 years. Corporate tax rate has come down to 25%. And let me tell you, corporate tax coming 25% is very good for corporate India. Not the India you and I talk about, but most because earlier at 35%, for 1 rupee tax you pay, you got 2 rupees profit in the books. Now for 1 rupee at 25%, you get 3 rupees. So the cost of the 3 rupee white money has become cheaper. Do you understand?
Yeah. It's not incremental, it's exponential.
Because see, I did CA in a small firm and many people used to come, ये साल मुझे 50,000 income tax भरना है, कितना income दिखाना है? We were all shocked, ये क्या है income दिखाना? That is very business, traditional business. I want to pay so much tax, how much should I do? Then they'll make the books and come up, will be perfect.
So
you understand? Now, Modi got it. Right. That's why he brought it on 25%. Now, tax collections are shooting up. Personal tax, we're all hurt very badly because of stupidity, but this is getting hurt. So now we are seeing in India, which is digitally grown up, database available, cost of business has come down, the fear has gone up, fear is up. We're seeing India banking system is in good shape. We're seeing in India where because the commodity boom, lot of profits have come, debt has been paid back. We're seeing in India where consumption is going up. We're seeing in India where productivity has gone up and where capital costs have come down. And there's greater liquidity of capital, greater availability of capital, all the positive things have come up and the animal spirit is up. And on top of the startup ecosystem has created 106 unicorns. Right. The 106 unicorns, $112 billion of capital has come in from 2014 till now. And we got about maybe 300 unicorns. By 2025, we'll have totally 250 unicorns and we'll get maybe 120 to 180 billion dollars of capital coming in till then. So tech money is coming in. And FDI has gone to 85 billion. All the things have come well and we are not screwed up badly.
But the typical Indian will ask you, they'll ask us, how do you know the good times will continue? Maybe this is the top.
But Saurabh, there's a good, bad, the ugly in India. Earlier the ugly and the bad were predominant. Now the good is beginning to dominate. So if you look at a portfolio of companies, there are many more companies you want to invest as a fundamentalist compared to maybe 10 years ago. Yes. Correct? Yeah. Because you feel they become more honest, they're growing, they're not taking away money, blah, blah, blah. So today, we are seeing the good go up because the good feel that we can make legitimate money. We want market value, we want all this, the opportunity to do business, and they're doing well. And the bad and the ugly are getting diminished because they're suffering. There's more competition, there's greater flow of capital, more investors who come and identify and give you money. And the capital is not a constraint to the right kind of people. And people like you analyzing and writing all the nice stuff. So everybody wants to be liked by you. So
it's good to hear, but let me give another way of thinking about this. I went to school in Delhi in the 80s, 50 boys in my class. And by the time you say become a teenager, right, you figure out that your parents don't have that much money and say your friends who are being driven to school in a Toyota car have a lot of money. So by the time you're in class 8, 9, you start asking them, what does your dad do? What does your mom do? So by class 8, I figured out that my parents were among the few people in the class who paid tax, right? So I was shocked that as it is, we don't have that much money, plus we are paying tax. So I remember in class 8 going and telling my dad that, look, I've spoken to other boys in the class, their mom, dad don't pay tax. Can we also think about that? And my dad said, I work for a public sector company, son, that's not going to be possible. My mom said, I am a maths teacher in a convent school, it's going to be a little hard. So I was really disheartened, right? So this was 87, 88 when the Cricket World Cup was taking place. Now over the last 10 years, I've stayed in touch with my school friends. You grow up with them, it's hard not to stay in touch. They're part of your childhood, part of your identity. And these guys are, they're running, say, somebody's a jeweler in Karol Bagh. Karol Bagh is a market in Delhi. Somebody is running a pub in South Delhi. Somebody's a caterer in North Delhi and so on. So I've stayed in touch with them. And as the tax system changed, right, you did GST, then once you get caught in the GST loop, you got to then pay TDS to your employees, you got to pay corporate tax. So businesses which were say 25% return on capital, or let's keep it simple, 25% profit margin, have become 7-8% profit margin. And once, when I meet my friends, they say, "Itna paisa banta hai," I quickly do the maths that our sales team has taught me, which is that, look, if you're making 10% return from your business, sell the dukan, pull out the working capital, and give the money to Marcellus. Right?
You get more money.
And you can play golf all day. That's my pitch to my friends, right? Sell the dukan. You can play golf all day or spend time in Dubai, whatever you feel like doing, and you will get richer, right? And it's a straightforward pitch. So much so that if you look at the Ministry of Corporate Affairs data, every year 7.5 lakh small businesses are shutting down, right? And that shutting down means capital is getting freed up. It's shifting from black to white, and the constituency you represent, the constituency my friends represent, are pumping in $80 billion a year into the financial system, right? This is SEBI, IRDA, RBI data. Which means over a decade, we will pump in $1 trillion. So when people ask us, right, what will the future be like? None of us are astrologers. But the reason MDP's point of view about unicorns and sunicorns has a lot of heft behind it is the flow of capital is relentless. If you take the last 12 months, until a month ago, foreigners were not investing in India. You were, we were, and that meant that the country keeps getting capital. If you keep getting capital, capital stays affordable. Capital stays affordable. The aspirations of the entrepreneurial class keep getting fulfilled. Now that's the journey we're on. Now, Pramod, we have a lot of questions from the audience, right?
But let me say a few things about the future, then we'll have a question.
Fine,
no, I'm very optimistic about India right now, much more optimistic than the past. We've always been optimistic because of many reasons. I really believe by 2026 it could be 5 trillion because we'll grow at 8.5-9% in dollar terms. We'll grow 7%, 8% in the next few years. And the rupee dollar is not going to depreciate at the rate, so we'll grow. And by 2032, we could be $10 trillion. Now, can you make it happen? There's 80% probability. 80% probability is fine. This year, we'll add $350 billion to our GDP. Did you know last year we added $500 billion to our GDP? Do you know that? We added 36 or 38 lakh crores. We went up from 198 lakh crores to 236 lakh crores. Look at the GDP data. We added 500 billion last year. 500 billion. Nobody in this country understood. Lutyens Delhi just doesn't understand. $500 billion to GDP. This year we'll add 350 billion, $850 billion in 2 years. That is unbelievable growth. Okay? And then this growth is going to create impetus. We save 28% of GDP. We invest 30% of GDP. 30% of GDP is $900 billion. Am I right? $900 billion we invest every year. It's enormous. This is huge on a scale. But the scale is not felt because we got too many people. We got 1.4 billion people. But our fertility has come down to 2.0. Let me give you some data. We got 1,020 women for 1,000 men. Men will no longer dominate this country. Women are living longer and we got more women than men. So India is going to be better, and you better be careful in making sure women get the due. All of you, we don't have enough women here. And 2, we got more women graduating than men. In the US, 56% of graduates are women, balance are men. So men are going to diminish. And India too, last year, 1920, more women graduated than men, and that is oscillating. There are more women doing masters and PhDs than men. Okay. On the social side, infant mortality is down, female mortality is down, we are living hopefully longer. So but we are aging. So population is not a problem. So we're not going to grow population. Population only growing up because we are living longer. And that's going to have its own set of problems. So socially, we are a very different country today compared to 10 years back. Financially, we are a very different country. Banks are in good shape. We got a fantastic securities market. We got very bright people doing capital allocation. We understand cost of capital. We understand capital allocation. And our business class wants to be in the top brackets. We want to export now, etc. We exported $170 billion of software last year. We get $80 billion of remittances. Our weakness is oil. Saudi Arabia exported about $150 billion of oil, and we exported $170 billion software, and this is going to go to about $300 billion by 2025. So in the next 3-4 years, what we export as brain power using a small number of people is more than the oil price that we're going to export, and along with remittances, we're already there. So the weakness of this economy, that is gone. So now we're seeing all the positives come. The negatives are politics. The negatives are the justice system, which is broken, because we don't have justice in this country. You file a case 15-20 years, IBC goes on, etc. And some social tension, because we are going through a transition and a flux, and urban reforms is required. So you see what happened in Bangalore. There are no urban reforms, huge corruption in urban affairs. So much of the legacy problems are over, growth is coming back, and I think with the population stabilizing, better education, better training, more digitization, more more automation, etc., and a outward looking, look, and digital innovation coming, and all kind of other innovation coming, getting interlinked, and the world itself not doing well, Europe in trouble, US will be okay, China will be constrained, so the Chinese business will go out, China +1 is coming up, Japan is there. So globally we are in a favorable position, India we are in a favorable position, so everything is set for growth. So I think this is the most optimistic scenario we have. There are going to be small pitfalls, but now all the constraints that we have, many of the constraints are last 10 years are cleaning up years. Detoxing. The detoxing is almost complete. But Saurabh, you got to live in Bangalore to understand the impact. You live in Bombay, you will not understand.
So every time we come to Bangalore, we sort of feel the buzz. We go back to so this is the only city with 2 big bookshops right at the heart of the city. So the intellectual ferment and the ideas that you guys give us go a long way towards making Marcellus whatever it is. Pramod, over to you.
So the intellect shows through in this sort of questions. I would love to take all the questions.
Tough questions.
Sir, I presume we have time for 3 quick questions.
Any number of questions.
Oh wow! Okay.
So long as they don't go away.
We're in for some luck. So one pertinent question. There's a lot of areas where India has developed, and coming from your own background, Indian IT service industry is a global leader now. But it's still IT services to some extent. So where this gentleman is coming from is from an aspect of innovation in science and technology. Is it that at our stage of evolution we shouldn't bother about that? We'll figure out later. Or how do we get to building the CRISPRs of the world or the next battery tech? Because we're still fighting for the basic stuff.
In February of 2011, I was in Jaipur in an investors conference. So they asked me a few questions, and I told them, you asked me the same question since 1994. Thank you very much and goodbye. And after that, I stepped on as CFO. They were all saying, "Kyun goodbye bola, kya bola," and all that. Look, let me tell you one thing. Look around the world. Where do the biggest digital companies come from? Microsoft is where? US. Google, US. Facebook, US. Apple, US. Then all other companies, Salesforce.com, all the companies, biotech, the US. Any companies in Europe? Only SAP. Any companies in Japan? Nintendo, that's all, hardware. Any company in China? Yeah, Alibaba, Tencent, but confined to them. Why is that? You see, if you want great innovation, you need a large economy. Our economy is only 3.15 trillion. Mera Bharat mahan hai, lekin chota hai. It's still small. We don't have money. Correct? One. Second, you need a lot of capital. We are still short of capital. Capital is improved, but it's still short of capital. There's no surplus. Third, we need more money on R&D. The entire university system spends 6,000 crores on R&D in the universities, where we got 3.8 crore young people. That is peanuts. That's what one company in the US spends. We're not spending enough on R&D. So we don't spend enough on R&D, we don't have enough capital, we don't have a big digital market and all that, and still we are done well. Now, let me give you data about Indian software services, because we have been called cyber coolies, we have been called body shoppers, we have been abused so much. India gets 60% of global outsourcing market, is $170 billion, the largest software service industry in the world. There are 5.1 million people employed. Of the top 10 software service companies of market value in the world, 5 are Indian. Of the top 5, 3 are Indian. Of the 3 million employees in the top 10, 2.1 million are Indians. We dominate this industry. Out of 6 million software people in America, 1 million are Indians there. Out of this 5.1 million, 2.5 million work for American companies. Out of 9 million working for American companies, 3.5 million are Indians. All right. Now in India, we got 106 unicorns. China has got 250 unicorns. America has got 850 unicorns, out of which 100 unicorns headed by Indian founders. We dominate this field and we have built a global industry in services. And now we are building a global scale industry in startups, in innovation, in product companies, and there we are number 3 in the world, bigger than any other country except China and America. So in the next 10 years, you're going to see this grow. What do we need? We need capital. Last year we got $42 billion coming in. This year we got $16 billion. Last year $16 billion came to Bangalore. $10 billion has come to Bangalore in the first 6 months. So Bangalore is booming despite all the water and all the nice stuff. And by 2025 we'll have 250 unicorns from 106 unicorns. So we're seeing that growth come now. And when that money comes and everything comes, you're going to see that innovation growth. So we are a global digital power, built on software, built on human capital. This year and next year, the IT industry, both startups and services, is going to hire 1.4 to 1.5 million people. Last year we hired 500,000 people in services, 100,000 people in startup. The largest tech hiring in the world is happening here. At next 2 years, we're going to have the largest tech hiring for any country in the world happening in India. Bangalore, we hired 250,000 people last year. This year we are hiring 300,000 people. And that's why people have to stay at home and work, because they can't go on the road. So now you understand. So this is a build up, and once it build up, in 5 years time, you're not going to ask me this question hopefully, but are we going to have a Microsoft? No. Are we going to have an Apple? No. Are we going to have a Google? No. They're too big, they have to be broken up, because to come to the size, US is a $25 trillion economy, Europe is a $16 trillion economy, we are a 3.15 trillion. The Indian IT service market in India is 30 billion. The global market is 2 trillion. Will you come to this market or that market? We have to go to that market. We are some 8 times the Indian market in export, right? So all these things are important for us to understand. It's not that we lack brain power. It's not that we lack entrepreneurs. We don't have a local market and we don't have Panam. Of course, the IC service companies got huge amount of cash, but they're in services. Services like banking. In banking, you have commercial banking, investment banking. Investment banking is products, this is services. So let us do, we have done well in services, we'll do well in products.
Fair enough. We'll look forward to that in the next 5 years, like you said. There's also a pertinent question on the demographic dividend, which we talk about, right? And India perhaps is unique in the sense that we face 2 sorts of problems related to labor at the same time, right? So on the one hand, we say automation and everything is creating jobless growth. We need to create 10 million jobs a year, but a lot of the growth, for example, Saurabh keeps repeating this number, HDFC Bank profits have gone up 7x in the last 10 years, but the workforce has only gone up twice, right? So a lot of this growth is happening in a jobless way, yet there are companies in this city complaining about labor shortage. How do you read this conundrum and how do you resolve this?
Look, for the last 30 years, we have produced 2.5 crore babies a year. The number of babies produced has remained the same. Population has gone up. And the number of babies produced every year is going to start declining maybe from now. Because it takes 1 crore for a baby to finish college education today. It's very expensive to have a baby. And now when both the people are working, they don't want to sit and make a baby and look after the small thing. So it's a problem. And you see it in Bangalore. 35, see, out of 1,000 women, 35 don't get married in India. Okay? So this is a social transformation that's happening. And that is impacting us because it started happening. Now, out of these 2.5 crore young people who attain the age of 21, because they're born 21 years ago, 1.5 crore want jobs. Because 1 crore will probably get married or they go into agriculture. Out of 100 people working in this country, 43 people work in the agriculture sector, which is 15% of GDP, growing at 3.5%. All right. Some 30 people work in services, which is growing at 7 to 8%. And the balance, that is 27, is in industry, growing at maybe 4 to 5% or 6%. And the income level in agriculture in India, per capita income is 60,000 rupees, and in industry is 1,50,000 rupees, and services 2,30,000 rupees. It is 1:2:5 or something like that. Okay, that is the composition. And there were 15 years back, 60% of Indian workforce worked in agriculture. So, we are transitioning from an agricultural dependent workforce to a manufacturing and this thing. But what we need in manufacturing is a labor intensive industry which you don't have because China captured that. Now, we need 1.5 crore jobs. How many jobs do you think we are producing? Let me give you data. If you look at the EPFO data which comes every month, we are producing 9 lakh jobs a month. Out of which 4.5 lakh jobs are in the 18 to 25 years span, first job. The balance 30% could be, for informal to formal. That means 1 crore jobs are created here which you can identify and see. Then we sell 800,000 trucks a year. Out of it 25% is replacement, 600,000 trucks, 2 jobs per truck, that is 12 lakhs. We sell some 500,000 tractors, 20% replacement, so 4 lakh jobs, 16 lakh jobs, correct? We graduate some 20,000 chartered accountants, 2.5 lakh lawyers and all the thing, take the professional 5 lakh jobs. So, in this area we got another 20-25 lakh jobs. So, we are producing 1.3 crore to 1.5 crore jobs a year, but the problem with India is out of them 25 lakh jobs pay more than 3 to 5 lakhs a year, 5 lakhs and more a year. The balance pay less. So, we have got a wage problem, not a jobs problem, and that is why people are not able to get people here. You understand? So, in Bangalore there is a shortage of people for jobs, but they do not pay well. So, people do not want to come. In Bombay there is a shortage, they do not pay well. Delhi there is a shortage, they do not pay well. And today after that COVID, when they all went back, in their town, if they earn 5,000-6,000 rupees, they got to have, Modi has given them a house, free food, sab kuch hai, pani hai, ye hai, sab kuch hai. Why should they come stay in a slum in Delhi and get 10,000 rupees?
So natural solution is wage inflation, right? Wages have to go up.
Productivity has to go up, wages have to go up, purchasing power is going up. And if you look at the BCG report of income levels over the last 30 years, you see a remarkable transition. So, we are in a position where we have to create high quality jobs. High quality jobs will come, labor intensive industries plus automated industry plus the service industry growing. Now, in the service industry, IT and startups will create 7 lakh jobs. Government creates 7 lakh jobs a year. The data is there. That is 14 lakhs. Banking, financial services maybe 3 to 4 lakhs. That is 18 lakh. And rest of industry maybe 7 lakhs. 25 lakh decent jobs paying 5 lakhs and above will be created in this country. But we need to create more of the jobs. And last point is, much of the jobs is in South India. Much of the jobs in South India. Because South India, fertility is 1.7. Karnataka produced 12 lakh babies in 2001-12. Now it is only 10.5 lakhs. Last year 5.5 lakh people died, and if you take the same algorithm, by 2030 there will be more people dying than babies being born in Karnataka. So, Tamil Nadu has got 1.7, Maharashtra has got 1.7, Bengal has got 1.6 because they are all running away, and Punjab has got 1.6, and you will be very surprised among all communities, the Jains have got a fertility of 1.2. So, better tell a Jain friend 50 years they won't be around. They are not having enough babies. No, I think the social composition is very important, demography is very important. And let me give some more data. UN said the world will have 11 billion people by 2100, now is 9.6. Population is shrinking in Europe, shrinking in Japan. China will start shrinking in 2035 onwards. And China's population 1.5 billion will come down to 900 million by 2100. India's population of 1.5 will come to maybe 1.2 or 1.25 billion by 2100. So, the whole world population of all these countries is shrinking. So, that is the situation. So, today we need high quality jobs. We are producing enough jobs, but not enough at the right time and here. So, North India you have unemployment, but the men in North India are coming down. All labor here in the houses and all Northeast are coming, am I right? Hotels and all are Northeast. Construction is all Bihar and Jharkhand and Rajasthan. Even Bangladeshis are coming, correct? So, they are all coming. Where are the local Kannadigas? You understand? So, the whole of South, in Kerala, 10% of the people speak Hindi. There are Hindi signs near Kochi. Biharis have becoming dominant there. The Malayalis are all going there, working in the desert. Okay, they don't want to, leave this country and go. So, you have this social churn. So, people should understand all this social churn to find out, and you will be very surprised. UP produced the largest number of women graduates, 12 lakh a year. Now, you say that women are working less in the workforce. That's because most girls are in school. Most girls go to college, 28% of 18-23 go to college. Largest number of girls graduate in North India, not in the South because population is stabilizing, and they don't emigrate. So they get educated, stay at home, do their masters. The men come down and work. The women stay there, and that's why the women participation rate in the workforce has come down. There is a demographic transition. So we have to study demographics all across India to understand how India will develop overall, and that is the problem about jobs.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. In fact, I'll tell you, Pramod, I had a call from the PMO about 4 years ago from the principal secretary saying, Prime Minister told me to talk to you, come and help. I said, what do you want? I said, jobs, because I've been writing about jobs for long. They said, come and set up jobs. Tell us where the data, because everybody is saying no jobs, no. Economy can't grow here. How can there be jobless growth when the economy grows? Am I right? It's stupid, correct? Even Raghuram Rajan is saying the silly thing. It's so stupid. You should know better, right?
So the 30 million, just to put the 30 million, as MDP is saying, the EPFO data is showing now, unless somebody here believes the EPFO data is fraud, which we don't, we believe the EPFO data is for real. So if you just take the EPFO data at face value, we've created 30 million jobs in 3 years. 30 million is the entire workforce of France. 30 million is the entire workforce of UK. So what those countries have got for their entire workforce we've created in 3 years. But as you can see from the sales of the FMCG companies, right? FMCG companies ka sales grow nahi ho raha hai. And that points to the low wages at the core of the job creation engine. So now the people who run our country, the companies we invest in a way, they have to make a call on wages, right? And what they are trying to do, and that's their job, they're saying let's bring in more capital, more machines, more automation. Rather than paying the dude more. And as a result, as Pramod said, if you see any high-class Indian company, profits will be up 7-8x in 10 years. Labor force will barely double. And now you could argue there should be a policy response, which is why people like MDP are being called in. What should the policy response be? How can you persuade the Asian Paints and the HDFC banks of the world to hire more low-wage people, given all the labor market issues that our country has historically lived with?
Sir, let me give you the example. You got some time. I think it's important to understand. You're all investors. Let me give you the example of China. China opened up in 1978. At that time, India and China were $150 billion in GDP. When China opened up, they did an interesting thing. They first opened up in agriculture for 10 years. They stopped collective farming, gave the land to the farmers, say what you grow. Production doubled in 10 years. There were surpluses. Then they opened up the coastal SEZs. In the coastal SEZ, in Guangdong and Shenzhen and Shanghai, in the coast, they built the ports. Labor-intensive industries like garments, light engineering came in the place, driven by Hong Kong, because wages were low. The girls and other labor came from eastern China to the urban areas, sat in a hostel, worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they produced these goods, and factories came up, they produced surpluses. So we come from some 88 to 98, correct? And then China started investing in infrastructure. And then China came on to WTO in 2003. And that's the decade when they started building 1,000 IIT-like institution, putting money into infrastructure and developing the ports and developing everything else. And then the next decade, they started putting money into technology, into chip manufacturing and all that, and they sequenced it. So what China did was, they leveraged the labor surplus to create value and drive up the usage of labor, create great value, suppress wages. Now in the last 7 years, because of labor unrest and high cost of living, labor costs have gone up in China by 3x. Now they're creating a middle class which can consume and create the local economy. Now we did not do any of this right. We suppress agriculture. We suppress everybody else. We didn't create, wage growth industries. India used to export $15 billion, I think, of garments when Bangladesh was exporting 1. Today Bangladesh exports 50, India exports 30. Because our labor intensive industries are treated very shabbily. If you employ 1,000 people, labor inspector come will make you miserable. If you employ a few people and automate everything, nobody bothers you. So it is a very perverse kind of policy that we have. So we need to create labor intensive industries in the north of India. Bangalore has 5 lakh people in garments, and nobody works in garments in Bangalore. They get girls from Orissa, Jharkhand and all to stay in the hostel here and pay them money, and they're all running away. In fact, they put up the thing, trespassers will be hired in the garment factories. It is like that. So, see, this labor dynamics is something that we need to understand, because then we'll give an appropriate policy. Like I said, PMO called me, we set up the Ghosh and Ghosh report, we created a report on jobs, and now the EPFO is giving data. Now the job data is coming out. Based on that, we need a policy response, but the policy response has to be clear. What are the policy? We need a labor intensive industries to be in the north of India, UP and all, because a lot of people are coming off the land, and that should export outside, and you must give them incentive. Second, we need urbanization. Why is urbanization required? Urbanization is concentration of human activity. Concentration of human activity creates specialization. Specialization increases productivity, and productivity leads to higher income. Same mantra like Abdul Kalam was saying, is a different kind of mantra. We need urbanization, and third, we need infrastructure. Going from Bangalore to Delhi in one day by rail and high-speed rail, roads and all that, which is happening. And then we need a justice system to bring down the delays in the court system to release money, and increase in capital efficiency. And then we need more investment. Our bank lending to GDP is 50%. Bank lending to GDP in China is 250%. Our banks are not lending enough. So we need to get more capital. Now the capital is coming in. People like you are allocating capital. We need proper capital allocation. So all the things that policy response is there is beginning to happen willy-nilly in parts of the country, and that is why we need high quality jobs. See, we are going to automate jobs, that is true, but we still need to build houses, roads and everything. So there will be job growth, but the job intensity of a GDP growth percentage will be less than the past 10 years.
Right.
In America, when the growth is 2 to 3%, it can come by labor productivity. Here, when the growth is 6-7%, at least 2 to 3% jobs will increase every year.
So I think the policy point, I think will I'm sure MDP and PMO will expedite that. From our clients' perspective, this piece, right, this persistent question that we get from lots of clients, job growth nahi ho raha, country barbad ho raha hai, that I think the EPFO data is definitive proof that there are people getting jobs. They might not be the world's most best paying jobs, but there's enough there for us to keep the growth engine going. Now, if MDP's policy suggestions come through, then all of our investee companies will grow 5 percentage points faster.
No, but they have to export, Saurabh. You must tell everybody, please export. See, the world GDP is 92 trillion. India's GDP is 3.15 trillion. Would you address a $92 trillion GDP or 3.15 trillion? You address the world market and grow.
So MDP, in a way, you sort of helped the audience and me understand why our companies in the past were not export oriented and why they are increasingly becoming so. As he's pointed out, right? 10 years ago, the cost of capital was so high, the cost of labor is still high, but the cost of capital 10 years ago was so high, you couldn't really go and compete even in light industrial manufacturing or even in specialty chemicals with China. China would wipe you off the face of the planet. You tried to compete. Increasingly, we are finding in our investee companies, small companies, $1 billion market cap, 2 billion, they are now world leaders, right? And their confidence has rocketed in the last 5-6 years. As from nowhere these people have become world leaders, and now they are saying, "Ab ye product kiya hai, ab ye 3 product karenge." Right? For the first time in the 14 years I've lived here, I'm seeing small companies tell us that it is possible we can become world leaders in multiple products. And obviously back in Marcellus, we are all scared middle class analysts. We ask each other, "Wo theek bol raha hai ya jhut bol raha hai?" Right? So MDP helps us rationalize why promoters are so confident about their overseas growth prospects.
So thank you, sir. It's refreshing to know that the government is reaching out to people like yourself in terms of policy advice. So it's good to know that the country is in good hands. We would love to continue the discussion for as long as it takes, partly because the more you speak, the less our clients will have time to grill Saurabh and me on performance. But I'll use one last question as a segue into questions about Marcellus and performance. It's a very pertinent question. Somebody has very nicely noticed. Sir, what made you think of educating the employees of Infosys about personal finance at a time when the concept of personal finance, financial planning itself was not known, did not exist? And given the context of the crowd here, which is all clients of Marcellus, we are talking about personal finance. What can you say about the importance of
No, I think, see, our social structure has changed. Cost of living is going up for various reasons. And we are going to have smaller nuclear families. And the care that you could depend on children for a future is gone. So all of us have to be independent. So as a middle class, we have children, we got to educate them, take care of them, and we got to look after ourselves. And all of us many of us will end up in old age homes. And somebody has to take care of us. So you have to look after your own personal finances and invest well. And now we are in a stage where economy is growing, companies are growing, profits are going up, lot of growth is happening. The world is pouring its money, but we are not putting our money. So put that money in the right place and watch it grow, and for that you have to have an asset allocation, learn personal finance, and honestly depend on good trusted managers and do it yourself, not the ones who charge you 2% fees and all that, that's too high, but reasonable fees where they give you some good return and share in the profits beyond a certain level. So that you got to do, so that you work hard, save, and your finances go. So by the time you get older, you live comfortably and you're living longer. So it is a necessity for everybody to learn personal finance and to invest wisely. Because everything is there in your favor. You're going to have surpluses. You're going to have savings. Okay? And honestly, I think we should be very careful where we put our money in the first 10 years of our life. Do we buy a car or do we walk? Or do we buy a two-wheeler? Do I buy a car or buy a stock? And when you get to 40, you got to be very different because you can't take more risk. And some people bought crypto at 40, 50 and the crypto is gone, correct? And what do? You're not going to get the money back. There's going to be no social security for you. There's no social security in this country. We're all gone. And if you by chance get into a medical calamity, you go to an hospital, man, you're gone. You're gone. I mean, 40% of people who fall into poverty because of medical reasons. So today we have to be extremely careful about personal finances. And that's why we thought we'll start educating people and doing that, and we did many things.
No, thank you so much for that. Just to clarify, we also have a 0% management fee, and we only charge for performance. But thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Extremely grateful for the time that you spent.
Thank you very much.
Big hand for MDP.
Little thing from us in return. Thank you very much, MDP. Thank you for all the So Pramod will take the hot seat. We'll ask the difficult questions. Whilst I'll see MDP out. But thank you, MDP, for joining us. By all means, yeah. So Pramod, why don't you join me here? And now it's over to you guys for all your tough questions on fees, performance, and much more. How do you want to do this, Pramod? Is mic goes around the room?
Yes.
So mic goes around. So put your hand up and Hardik will find you. Anybody wants to go first? So whilst, very quickly the hands have come up. That's a typical Marcellus response. Sensible investing, tough questions.
So my name is Kurian. So my question is, on CCP, many of your funds, you have more than 10 companies. So what is the difference between your top 5 companies and the bottom 5 companies in your mind? Can you just explain that to us?
So I think what Kurian Sir has asked is basically a question on position sizing. So just let's take you through how we position size, right? For every company that we invest in, we look at 3 things. First, we look at the 3 things qualitatively and then we attribute a score. So first is the moat, right? In simplest terms, the moat is the degree of pricing power said company has vis-a-vis the rivals. And typically, as you guys know, we're looking at companies which are charging 20, 30, 40% higher than the competition, and yet the competition can't take a single customer away. And the greater the pricing power, the higher the score out of 10, right? So say a Titan or a Tanishq will get very high marks, 8, 9 out of 10, right? So it's the first element of Marcellus's job. The second element is succession planning, right? Basis what MDP just said, our reckoning is the entire country, we probably have 100 really high quality managers of companies, right? It's still only 20 years of the free market. We probably have only 100 high quality managers. If you and I are going to make money from a company for 20, 25 years, we need to figure out whether that company has a pipeline of great managers. Now that pipeline of great managers needs effort. So you're looking at, is the company hiring great talent from the top colleges? Is it mentoring them, giving them early responsibility, giving them the appropriate coaching? And mid-40s are these people getting parachuted into the boardroom. What you're trying to avoid is companies who are headhunting CEO talent. That's an immediate challenge, right? It's an immediate challenge which suggests the talent pipeline is dry. Linked to that is you're looking at boardroom churn. The more churn there is in the boardroom, the lower the score. Typically the great Indian franchises, the boardroom churns once a decade. The C-suite churns once a decade. And when that churn takes place, the replacement comes from within the ranks. So TCS, Asian Paints being great examples. Titan itself in your city being a great example. So second score is on succession planning, right? HR practices, talent management practices. We look at it very carefully. Part of this is the independence of the board. Is the board the promoters' golf club buddies, or are these independent directors who will stand up and ask tough questions in the board meeting? And the third aspect, Kurian Saab, the third aspect is what we call lethargy, which is basically the energy, the enterprise, the drive the company shows in constantly improving the franchise, pulverizing the opposition, and disrupting the industry. Right? So you can measure this in several ways. For example, how much has the working capital cycle compressed over the last 10 years? Why has it compressed? Is it because of sensible use of technology, or is it because of, say, use of channel finance from one of the banks in Bombay, right? How much have the asset turns improved? How much harder is the factory being sweated? How many new products and services are coming out from the company? What initiatives are we seeing in the last 3-4 years which allow the company to disrupt the industry comprehensively? So just to take the Titan example, Carrot Lane is a profoundly disruptive measure that Titan launched by acquiring Carrot Lane, I think 5 years ago. Right? Carrot Lane basically will decimate the local jeweler, the jeweler which is saying, say, 20,000, 30,000 rupees ka jewelry. Carrot Lane is an extremely disruptive move. So we score companies on all of these three fronts. Out of totals 10, 10, 10, total score 30. The higher the score, the bigger the position size. Now, typically what we have found is that the best of the best companies in India get 25, 26, 27. A typical Marcellus company gets 18, 19, and say the lowest weightages in your portfolios will get 16, 17, right? And as a result, the result is, in a typical Marcellus portfolio, the top 4 stocks will carry 35 to 40% of the weight. The top 10 stocks will carry around 70 to 80% of the portfolio. And as all of you have seen, our portfolios only contain 14 to 16 stocks. But behind that is this constant assessment of moat, succession, and lethargy. And these assessments are tough, and often they are driven by very difficult meetings with management teams, where we're asking tough questions, pushing management teams to improve their moat, improve their capital allocation, improve their succession planning, and so on. I think, Kurian Saab, you have a continuation to a question? Okay, you're done. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, sir. First of all, thank you. And thank you, Pramod. Like last time, what you mentioned, saying that like I'll definitely get Saurabh next time to Bangalore. Thank you so much for that. I just have two questions. One question and one feedback, sir. One question is on the Little Champs. Any thought process wherein like we get an opportunity to invest in Little Champs? I know like it is a very small area. That is one thing. And the second thing is a small feedback. When we log into the username and password of Marcellus, it is very light for people who are having little visually challenging people. It is better the username when we type, it is darker to see so that it doesn't have a username and password error.
Thank you for that feedback. We didn't realize that. We'll take that on board. So basically, when you're putting in the username password, it's hard to read.
Yeah, it's very hard to read. Sometimes we don't know whether we are entering the right username or not. It's very difficult to read. For me, it is fine. But when my dad is entering my username and password, there might be...
Okay, sorry about that. We didn't realize it. We'll take it on board.
Sorry that.
Promote Little Champs. You want to take it?
Yeah. So look, we'd love to take more money. Who doesn't, right? So... but we also have to be responsible. Little Champs has a liquidity constraint. It invests in really small cap companies. So we have to be responsible in terms of how much money we manage, because beyond a point we will fall into a trap, because we're bound to make mistakes. Last thing is you don't want to get stuck in a stock which you can't sell. And hence the reason of capping the size of the fund. However, we do have a revolving door policy. So if and when any investor in the fund redeems, we let somebody come in. So you can let us know, our sales team is here. You can ask them to put you on the wait list. So as and when people go out, we keep moving the wait list in. So it is closed in some ways, but you will get your opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, the mic is coming.
I ask this question not flippantly, but in deadly earnest. To most of us investors in Marcellus, Marcellus means people like Pramod and Saurabh and others in your excellent team. I had a nightmare the other day. I woke up in a cold sweat at 3 in the morning that the two of you had been pinched by one of these 10 wonderful companies that you admire. Is that a vulnerability that we ought to be worried about, or, it's something that is perfectly
So let me set
in
your
order?
mind at rest, sir. Since my entire life savings are invested in Marcellus's balance sheet, and the rest of my savings are in Marcellus's funds. So let me set your mind at rest. By doing that, I'm setting my mind at rest, actually. So the way we've built the company, right, it's that there's 11 of us who have significant stakes in the firm. Beyond that, there's 30 other employees who have meaningful stakes in the firm through our ESOP scheme. For all employees in Marcellus, including the 11 of us, we are not allowed to have investments elsewhere. So Pramod can't invest in some other fund, neither can I. By contract, Marcellus's employment contract with me, with Pramod, with the 11 most senior people, obliges us to invest 2/3 of our bonuses in Marcellus's products every year. That's the obligation. What I actually see in practice is the entire bonus tends to go in Marcellus's products. So that's the financial lock-in, right? Our life savings are invested either in the balance sheet or in the funds, not just for me, for Pramod, for Rakshit, for most of the leadership. Our ongoing income is locked into Marcellus's funds. Now, at a practical level, the way the firm has been built is we are not dependent on any one person. For all of our fund managers, there are understudies in whose training we are investing lots of money, time, effort, whose training is monitored very carefully. On the sales front, every client's data is on Salesforce. So God forbid something were to happen to our very talented colleagues in sales here, the relationships, the data, the entire client exchanges are captured in Salesforce. So to the extent we can, both from a financial lock-in perspective, financial incentivization perspective, and from a practical operational redundancy backup perspective, we have done everything possible from the day the firm was built for exactly this reason, sir. Thank you. Thanks. Any more questions? I think there's a hand up in the front, right in front.
In your book of Unusual Billionaires, there was a large FMCG. I won't take the name because there's the largest engineering conglomerate in India. And I feel there is a lack of succession planning, and that's because of the, in my own words, I've coined a term called the penumbric halo. That is the existing CEO of the engineering conglomerate who doesn't want to leave the chair. So there is no succession in that. And the large FMCG, which was there in your book of Unusual Billionaires, is no longer figuring in your CCP. So I think it speaks volumes about your transparency and moving forward.
Thank you, Sabji sir. Thank you very much. So folks, just to elaborate on this point a little bit, there's sort of two types of transparency we've tried to bring, and I think Pramod is the best guy to talk about it because he's spearheaded this whole effort that we've made to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, but look, one thing that we learned the hard way when it came to investing was, at some stage very early on in our careers, we also used to think we'll wake up, we'll read the newspapers, we'll figure out what's going to happen to the world and buy stocks with that, which will benefit from that prediction. But turns out, money never gets made that way. The learning was that wealth is created only if you stay invested over the long term. right? Because compounding is not just about a healthy return. Healthy return over long periods of time is what drives the magic of compounding. So staying invested is the only way to create wealth. But staying invested is perhaps the hardest thing, because the market will eventually and inevitably take you through a roller coaster ride, which will make us take irrational decisions of perhaps exiting at exactly the wrong time and entering at exactly the wrong time. The only way to get over that is if you know what your money is doing for you, i.e. if you know how your money is being invested, into what sorts of companies they're invested, so that when COVID happens, you don't lose your nerve. Because I know Marcellus says that they've invested in Asian Paints for these reasons, and it's unlikely that because of COVID, Asian Paints will fall apart as a company. That confidence, we realized, goes a long way in terms of us controlling our penchant for coming in and going out and destroying wealth in the bargain. So there was also a vested interest, because only if you stay invested do we make fees. So it's not all altruistic, but genuine reason. What we've learned is to stay invested, you need to develop that transparency. And the second aspect for the transparency is, we're in the business of trust. You are handing over your hard-earned money to us. The least we can offer to you is transparency. I don't think we're doing anything great. It's just our responsibility to be transparent with you.
So we'll take the question over here, and let me do a time check. Kapil, how much time do we have? Okay, so we'll do 10 minutes more. So we'll do this and one more question.
Okay.
Go on, sir.
I'm Joshi. I have a question regarding the taxation of the profit from PMS in the hands of investors.
Okay.
I am under the impression that whatever I have, the profit gained from PMS, it is the taxation is as a capital gain like equity and mutual fund. But my CA is telling that no, it is treated as a business income. Another point is the charges, your charges. Can I deduct your charges from my the profit?
So
these two.
Yeah. So basically, are the expenses tax deductible?
Correct.
So look, we are not tax advisors, but everything
I know,
I've
I know.
heard from my
So
CA.
If you have knowledge, you can.
So my CA has told me that my CA has told me that the charges are not tax deductible.
Okay.
Right. So it crushed my heart, but
Okay.
it is what it is.
Right.
This business income point is a little new to us, because say for Marcellus itself invests in its own PMS, and our CFO and our CA have always deemed the Marcellus PMS income to be capital gains tax rather than business income. Obviously, at a personal level.
Correct. I'm talking about from investor's point of view.
From an investor's point of view, I fail to understand how it can be business income. I'm not a CA, I have to confess, but it makes no logical sense.
Okay.
And in my, last 4 years of filing my personal tax returns, not once has my CA or the income tax department told me that, Saurabh, your realized capital gains are business income. The realized capital gains get taxed at CGT. So I'm a little perplexed by the business income part.
So on the second aspect of letting PMS fees being deductible, I'd like to take the opportunity that MDP is present in the room, somebody who the government, I'm sure, has ears on. This is a request on behalf of a lot of our clients. Genuinely, they're employing professionals like us to generate capital gains. Why shouldn't that be allowed as a tax deductible expense? So if you can put in a word to the right corners, that'll be great.
Hi, I'm Vikash. So my question is not regarding the portfolio, but about the Adani stocks. What do you have to say about the Adani stocks?
Those who have read the books can draw their own conclusions, and if you want a copy of Diamonds in the Dust, just give us a shout, we will get a copy of Diamonds in the Dust. I would strongly recommend chapters 2 and chapters, I think chapter 2 will be enough. Chapter 2 will be enough. I know you're busy people, so Diamonds in the Dust, chapter 2, that's all you need. Can we do more questions, Hardik?
I think we should.
Okay, we'll wrap up. So,
Yes.
So there's high tea and we'll be outside. So grab us for more questions. We'll try to answer as many. What time do we have to leave for the airport?
6:30, 6:45.
Okay, so we'll do half an hour of questions outside over high tea. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.